Now, along with the totalitarian tiptoe comes the greatest mass mind manipulation technique. This is the motto of the 33rd degree of Freemasonry. Ordo ab chaos. Order out of chaos. Create the chaos and then offer the order out of it, which changes society in the way you want. This was George Bush. You're free, and freedom is beautiful. And you know it'll take time to restore chaos and order. Order out of chaos, but we will. He was quoting the 33rd degree motto. Order out of chaos, or as I've dubbed it, problem, reaction, solution. Simple, devastating, played on us by the day. You want to change society in a way that you know if you announce it openly, you're going to get massive reaction. So you don't announce it openly, you play this scam. Stage one, you create a problem. Could be a terrorist event, could be a war, it could be a run on a currency, could be a bird flu, it could be any problem that could elicit the outcome that you want. You then, through an unquestioning, pathetic mainstream media, you tell the people the version of this event that you want them to believe, i.e. Lee Harvey Oswald killed Kennedy with a gun that shot bullets that went there and then came back again. I.e. a guy in a cave in Afghanistan orchestrated 9/11, and all this stuff. And if we had a media worth the name journalism, problem, reaction, solution would not be possible. It would collapse immediately. Because real journalists would investigate the official version of the problem, they'd find it was a nonsense, and they would tell the people that, and they'd get a different reaction. Because they don't, because the mainstream media is just a public relations office for the official version of events, it goes through virtually undiluted. Official story, media, official story received by the people. And what they're looking for at stage two, the reaction, is outrage, fear, and words to the effect of something must be done, this can't go on, what are they going to do about it? Which allows those who've covertly created the problem, who've gleaned that public reaction, do something, they can then openly offer the solutions to the problems they have created. I've just described 9/11, by the way. I've also described the Second World War, where you had, when you do the research, a global elite that was behind the Russians, the Soviet communists as they became, who was behind the governments of Churchill and Roosevelt, one of the major, like I said earlier, Illuminati frontmen of the 20th century, who were behind the Nazis in Germany and who brought them into conflict, a major global problem. If you want to change something globally, you need to create a global problem. Conflict, Second World War. After the Second War, in just a few years, the people were mentally, emotionally, and physically exhausted. When they are doing those mind control horrors I talked about earlier, they get the victims exhausted, mentally, physically, and emotionally, because an exhausted mind becomes a much more suggestible mind. And so, how do we stop this happening again? I'll tell you. After the Second World War, an explosion of globally centralized institutions, the United Nations, the Bretton Woods Agreement, along came the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and all this other stuff. And the world was transformed by the problem of the Second World War. Same with the First World War. And this was one of the most clear and obvious problem, reaction, solutions I've ever come across. I went on a radio station in Los Angeles days after 9/11 because they'd heard on the internet I was saying it wasn't bin Laden, this was an inside job. This was in the first week after it. And they said, I got the usual, there was two kind of disc jockeys doing the interview. And I didn't work out which one had the brain cell that day. It wasn't easy. And it was, oh, what are you on? You're mad, and all that stuff. And I said to them, okay, I'll do you a deal. If this has not happened in the next month or 2 months, then I'll come back on your show and I'll hold my hand up and say I was wrong. All right, mate, yeah, we'll do that. Well, they never did, because it happened. It was called the Patriot Act, among many other things. Because what I said was, this is going to be used to take away far more basic freedoms that we've taken for granted, and exactly what it was used for, as well as getting the war on terrorism. Henry Kissinger was supposed to have said this at a Bilderberg meeting in 1991. Whether he said it or not, it sums up exactly the situation. Today, America would be outraged if UN troops entered Los Angeles to restore order. Tomorrow, they will be grateful. This is especially true if they were told that there was an outside threat from beyond, whether real or promulgated, that threatened our very existence. When presented with this scenario, individual rights will be willingly relinquished to the guarantee of their well-being granted to them by the world government. Problem, reaction, solution. And there is no need for prophecy about what is unfolding before our eyes today. No need for Nostradamus. In the year 2000, an organization in America called the Project for the New American Century produced this document, Rebuilding America's Defenses, Strategies, Forces and Resources for a New Century, September 2000, 1 year before 9/11. In this organization that produced this document were all the major players that 9 months after this was produced entered the White House and the Pentagon with the Bush administration. Cheney, Rumsfeld, Paul Wolfowitz, who was Deputy Defense Secretary at the time of 9/11, he's now head of the World Bank, and a stream of other people who have become known as neocons. Michael Ledeen in the top left-hand corner, connected into Licio Gelli and P2 and all that stuff in Italy. Richard Pearl, one of the great architects of the invasion of Iraq. John Bolton, another architect of the invasion of Iraq, now United Nations ambassador for America. Feith, another one. Jeb Bush, who is the president's brother. And this guy, William Crystal, who's a Murdoch clone in America, who's the chairman, or at least was chairman, unless they've changed it since I last looked, of the Project for the New American Century. These are the people behind the document I'm going to talk about. By the way, anyone remember Mr. Pastry? Is anyone old enough? You won't, will you? But when I was a kid, there was this children's entertainer in Britain called Mr. Pastry. He used to jump around a lot. Well, I always called John Bolton Mr. Pastry. I think it's uncanny, it's spooky, isn't it? It's spooky. And I'd rather Mr. Pastry, to be honest, was America's ambassador to the UN. I think we'd be safer. Another of these neocons is Frank Carlucci, former number 2 at the CIA, Defense Secretary Reagan Bush, a very, very close associate of Father George, thrown out of 2 African countries for plotting to kill their leaders. Yes, we must stop terrorism, Frankie. John Negroponte, another man fundamentally connected to horrific American terrorism in Central America and elsewhere. Another one of these neocons that are protecting us from the terrorists. So what did this document say in September 2000? It calls for American armed forces, the cavalry, on the new American frontier. It says that key allies like the United Kingdom are the most effective and efficient means of exercising American global leadership. Well, there's 2 to bloody tick off straight away. Keep your pen handy. The United States has for decades sought to play a more permanent role in Gulf regional security, while the unresolved conflict with Iraq provides immediate justification. The need for a substantial American force presence in the Gulf transcends the issue of the regime of Saddam Hussein. Tick. It calls for a blueprint for maintaining global US, i.e. Illuminati, preeminence and shaping the international security order in line with America's principles and interests. This American grand strategy, it says, must be advanced as far into the future as possible, and the US must, quote, fight and decisively win multiple simultaneous major theater wars as a core mission. And that's exactly what they're doing. We've had Afghanistan, we've had Iraq, and now they're trying to wangle a conflict with Iran. Tick. It says that peacekeeping missions demand American political leadership rather than that of the United Nations. It highlights North Korea, Syria, Iran and Libya as dangerous regimes and says their existence justifies the creation of a worldwide command and control system, World Army. Now, The axis of evil speech involved in its claims of evil Iraq, Iran, North Korea, straight off the pages of that document. It was written by a Bush speechwriter called David Frum, who is one of those neocons connected to those people that produced the document. And they say, oh, we're still trying to stop the war with Iraq. Oh, God, please, you've been planning it for years, mate. This document spotlights China for regime change, saying it is time for the presence of American forces in Southeast Asia. This could lead to American and Allied power, providing the spur to the process of democratization in China. They want a war with China. I've been saying it for 10 years. That guy with a patch on his chest said exactly the same. It's leading to a war with China. They want a global problem that they can finally impose their global solution. To stop this ever happening again, we need a world government with power to stop it and an army to stop it. Exactly where they're going, which is why I was able to say this in 1998. The plan is to engineer events real and staged that will create enormous fear in the countdown to 2012. This includes a plan to start a third world war, either by stimulating the Muslim world into a holy war against the West or by using China to cause global conflict. Maybe both. The China thing is happening. The same document calls for the creation of US space forces to dominate space and total control of cyberspace to prevent their enemies using the internet. What we're seeing now, and you've been following this, are increasing attempts and changes to dictate what you can and cannot say on the internet and to hand power over the internet to the corporations that they control. Talks of developing biological weapons that can target, quote, specific genotypes. This may transform biological warfare from the realm of terror to a politically useful tool. These are the very same people who are saying they need to protect us from the terrorists. Now, what else did this document say? It said that this process of transformation, all this list of things it wants to happen, would be likely to be a long one, absent some catastrophic and catalyzing event like a new Pearl Harbor. Those words were published in September 2000. 1 year to the month later, we had what Bush called at the time our Pearl Harbor. Catastrophic and catalyzing event. Elephant in the living room. Who's benefited from 9/11? That's the great antidote to problem, reaction, solution, that question. Who benefits? Who benefits from me believing this version of events? Well, do the Muslim world benefit? Oh, no. What about the people who died in 9/11? No. Ooh, who can benefit from this? Only those that wish to use it to justify transforming society in the image they require. I go into this whole 9/11 thing in this book, but I'm going to go through the whole structure of it in the next half an hour or so. It has justified so much. Blair said, since 9/11, the world has changed. Yes, it has. It was meant to. The movie tells us that it was 19 hijackers orchestrated by Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda. The secret agenda is problem, reaction, solution.